aggressive, you're too bossy, and, it's really using a new lexicon. I'm not too bossy, I'm the boss. I'm not too bossy. Sheryl Sandberg says, you have executive presence. I'm not aggressive, I'm passionate. So it is time to flip the script. Totally agree. Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie McMahon, Chief Brand Officer for WWE, and really all bias pisses me off. I hate that, as people, we tend to judge one another without knowing one another, based on what we look like, based on our gender, based on whatever that may be, and it all bothers me, quite frankly, ever since I was a little kid with Andre the Giant, and people would judge him just because of his size. And it's a lesson I learned pretty early on in life.
Well, it's amazing because I interviewed some NFL players recently, and they said, just because we're NFL players, people think we're tough and we don't have any emotion. And they said, we cry in our huddles, and we share things that connect us in ways that we never imagined. So it is okay to show your emotion, because it does show your passion and your humility and your vulnerability. Will you just tell everybody what you gave me as a gift in Cannes?
I gave Shelly a customized WWE Women's Championship belt, because if there was ever a champion for women and gender equality, it is Shelly Zalas.
I want to see you wear it.
I know,
I worked all up and down the Croisette in 100 degrees, and that belt
awesome.
is heavy.
It's big.
I'm well deserved, by the way. Very well deserved.
But while we're on that subject, my favorite topic is the champion belt for, WWE. When we talk about the hidden diversity dividend, and you made it not so hidden, what was one of the biggest changes you made, in wrestling?
Well, it really was how our women were portrayed in the show. So, our women were portrayed around 2015 and prior as more secondary, if not tertiary type characters. They were seen as nice to have, not the need to have. And there was a match that lasted all of 30 seconds in a 3-hour show, which unfortunately was the norm, and our audience had enough. So they started a hashtag called Give Divas a Chance, which was how we branded the division at the time. And it trended worldwide for 3 days, with our audience demanding better representation, better character development, better storylines, more athleticism, longer matches. And their voices were so loud that our chairman and CEO, who is also my father, Vince McMahon, responded and said, "We hear you, keep watching, hashtag Give Divas a Chance." So then at WrestleMania, which is akin to our Super Bowl in front of over 101,000 people at AT&T Stadium, we strategically launched the rebranding of the Divas division to the women's division, unveiled a new championship belt that was more akin to the men's, but still very feminine. It was a butterfly. It was. And now it is much better looking, and Shelly will share those photos later. And also that our women would be called superstars, same as the men. Since that time, our women have actually headlined WrestleMania for the first time in 35 years this past April. We had our first ever women's match in Abu Dhabi, which took us 6 years to be able to have that match. And during the match, a chant broke out of both men and women chanting, "This is hope," which is not a typical WWE chant. This is hope. You can't imagine the impact that had on little girls that were sitting in the audience, and women and men. And then for the first time ever in history in Saudi Arabia in October, we had the first ever women's match. And the chant there was simply, "This is awesome."
And I was there.
Shelly was there.
Which is the craziest thing. I was in Riyadh for 1 day and 1 day only. And Stephanie sees that I'm in Riyadh. She goes, "Are you in Riyadh?"
I know. I didn't even know you were in Riyadh.
How'd you know?
Texted you. I didn't. I texted you to let you know because I told you it was something we were working on for so long. And I randomly texted you to let you know it was going to happen. And you were like, "Oh my God, I'm on a plane on the way right now." So
That is the craziest thing.
It was crazy.
So I brought 30 Saudi women to the match in Riyadh, which was remarkable. So kudos to you. And so much change, can happen if we believe it's possible. So Antonio, you have been truly such a champion for change inside of our industry, marketing, media, technology, research, finance, across industries. is it hard to activate change? Like, tell us a story of something you made a commitment to do and did it, just like Stephanie did.
So, is it hard? Yes. Is damn hard, and it's supposed to be hard because things that matter a lot are supposed to be hard. I think we have made it harder than it should. Shelly, and you and I have had a number of conversations. This year I turned 60, and I've become a rather loving but very impatient man. I saw my first grandchild be born. Of course, is a woman in addition to my 5 daughters.
His amazing daughters.
And this whole notion of when you see 2 generations behind you gives you a renewed sense of purpose, but also a sense of urgency. You and I have been talking about this in panels like this for over a freaking decade. And we know it's hard. We know it takes holistic and systemic change. By the way, the freaking need to get things done. Unfortunately, our industry, which I love, has many great things, but sometimes I feel we're in a race for the PR stunt and we're not working together enough. And you live the quintessential example when the ANA developed with you the GEM score, which it's a comprehensive plan. We know it works. We have results. It's quantitatively proven. We have the cases, and then other associations decided to have a different score. And then we had the race of the press release. So one of the things that I hope we're able to accomplish in this decade is for the industry to work closer together, to focus on those things that we know works. What works? Scorecards work. What works? Comprehensive programs that involve holistic and systemic change among marketers, agencies, production houses, and the entire ecosystem. Mentoring people, working at the same time in inclusion as well as representation, because both are incredibly important, and then holding ourselves accountable. That's the playbook. There's nothing else, nothing more. It's as simple and as complicated as is, and I think that's what's getting in the way of progress today.
I think that, that is very true and very fair. And I learned something new the other day, which I'm kind of, bullish on, which is it's not just about representation, it's about reflection.
Absolutely.
And one of the biggest challenges we have is it's not being represented, it's how you feel. And if everyone can see themselves there and feel reflected, that's where we create this culture of belonging, and that we can all bring our best selves to the table, which means it's very important if we want to attract and retain the best talent to have representation and reflection.
Yeah, but it takes hard work and it takes consistency. Because even in companies like
ours, it takes chutzpah. You need to be brave and not be afraid.
Yeah, but even in companies like ours that stand for diversity, we have an inclusion problems with our Black employees, a serious inclusion problem. We're going to deal with it. But this requires holistic and systemic change over significant period of time, and not the flavor of the month, not the flavor of the PR stunt. And it requires a lot of union and critical mass, which is something that you're trying to do and build, and hopefully we're all going to get together on it.
Well, I was going to say that's something like, as the Consumer Technology Association, we've been trying to do more of, is bringing our member companies and sharing best practices. What's really working? Let's really bring people who are having successful programs, who are doing things that they're seeing the results of, and sharing it with other people. We have 2,200 corporate members as part of CTA, and everybody from small startups to companies like yourself and WWE, even as a member, thank you. But it's kind of it's kind of a nice way, because it's sometimes like you were saying, and sometimes rather than being kind of in a PR role, this is where you're kind of behind closed doors sharing that information and trying to figure out what's best for your company, and how can you do something that's better for your company? And this is new for us. I mean, it's something that we've only had underway for about the past year and a half, but I think it's an important role that we get to play as an association. Sorry, there's a bug there. I'm not being weird.
Tiny little.
It's like, I don't know what it is, but it likes me. I think that's also rules that associations can help play with companies to do it, because it is hard when you're trying to carve the path on your own. And like you said, sometimes things aren't working, and then it's easier to kind of sometimes give up on them.
I wanted to go there because, Antonio unlocked the conversation of the power of collaboration and how important it is to share the good, bad, and the ugly. And that's how progress happens. People are afraid to fail and try new things. But if we all do that together, it's a lot more fun, a lot less scary, and we go further faster for sure. And so CES has taken a very bold and strong, step forward, which was to make equality really a focus of, where you're going. And of course, we became your official equality partner. So thank you for that. That's a conscious decision. I always say equality is a choice, unconscious bias is an excuse. What was the moment that you decided it was time to stop just waiting for change to happen, but to actually push forward and take that big giant step?
I mean, for us, I think part of it is that we have always tried to be inclusive, and for us, inclusive is a even broader definition, because we're attracting people from 160 different countries. We have to somewhat be sensitive to different cultures who are coming to the show, people with different beliefs, different practices, as well as a lot of what we also bring in here is folks. We have visually impaired people. I mean, we're really dealing with 170,000 people, everybody that comes with something different. So it's trying to find what's the right balance. And, also it's trying to be in a role where you're not policing everybody, that you're not looking, how do you judge what's appropriate, and trying to balance and find the right balance. And so, that was one of the things that we really tried to do this year, was to take a little bit of a stronger sense of saying, okay, here are the parameters, but you know what? They're probably going to have to change, and they probably will continue to change. And I think that's probably the most important thing that we learned, is we just have to reevaluate and look and adapt each year and figure out what's right for that moment in time, because you can't necessarily future-proof yourself, but as long as you're continually looking and willing to look at what you need to change and adapt and learn. And I'm sure there'll be a mistake that we'll make somewhere over the course of this week that we'll hear about. And, the hope is that we take that information and we fix it, and we change it, and we make it better going forward. And, I think that's the most important part, is being committed to making it better. I think what was interesting this year is one of the things that we did is roll out a stronger dress code. And probably we had a dress code. It's just that now we have a penalty phase for somebody that, as an exhibitor, if you don't adhere to it. And what was really helpful is it actually created a lot of contact from exhibitors asking, is this okay? And those are really the conversations we want to have. We want people to have a great experience. We want them to be able to show their brands in the way that they need to show their brands. And, the fact that we're able to have those conversations now, I think, is just better for everybody. So that's been a plus.
I just have to applaud you for that, because, we've all heard about the booth babes, and, let's just get right to it. And I think that, you implemented the uniform so that people are showcasing their products and, being very intentional about that. And so I think that was a really big move, and you're gonna, have haters will hate. You gotta just give them the benefit of the doubt. And if they want to keep doing that, you move on, and you'll find, new people that come on board as a result, but you got to push forward.
Yeah. And I think, hopefully and I'll use this as a forum to say this, but, one of the things that's helpful to us is it's 4,500 exhibitors. We can't be everywhere. We don't see everything. And so we do need help when something is out there on the floor. And we've tried to put this in our CES app, that you can immediately report something to us. You can take a picture, send it to us, and then we can do something about it. And, I think that's also something that we're asking everybody to help us, is don't tell us 5 weeks from now you were offended. Tell us when it's happening, because we can't fix it after the fact. We now have ways to definitely change things when it's happened and when it's reported, but we need everybody to be our eyes and ears. And you're right, we can't always make everybody happy, but there's what's reasonable, and and then how do we adapt and how do we change? But I do hate the word babe. So can we call them booth workers or?
Well, I mean, now they are. Now they are booth employees.
Exactly.
You know?
I'm just glad you clarified about the uniform, because I was beginning to wonder about my biker boots and leather pants.
We'd love to bring the booth
I was gonna say, might have to borrow those tomorrow. Today, just don't get photographed too often in them, so I can look fresh tomorrow. So let's go to, one of the really crazy statistics is that by 2024, we think that 2/3 of the computing positions will be unfilled because there's such a lack of talent. Or is there a lack of talent? Why are we seeing these numbers, being published? How do we get more, especially diversity, into the pipeline? Tech, we start 50-50 in most other industries. In tech, we start at much lower levels. What are some solutions for change that you're all working on?
Well, as I said, I mean, one of the things that as CTA we did is that we've actually, IBM was kind enough to partner with us and give us kind of a roadmap to an apprenticeship program, and has helped us make it available to all of our members. And so what's great about this is it's basically taking workers and retraining them and reskilling them for the future jobs that you need. And the great thing is these aren't people that are required to have 4-year degrees, right? It's actually teaching them the coding that you need as your company, how to roll that out. And so I think that helps with a lot of barriers, because it doesn't mean that there's already some commitment or some skill set that somebody has already had if they can come in and start learning and being taught how to do the jobs that are going to be the jobs of the future. So that's one thing that as an association we've tried to put out there to help prepare the workforce for the future, because we do recognize that there's going to be a need for a skilled workforce.
I know at Facebook, Antonio, they did a 2-for-1 where, really doubling up on filling the pipeline, and now working on making sure you have diversity in the hiring staff too, because you can fill the pipeline, but if you don't have diversity in hiring, they could still choose, quote unquote, the people that look like them. How have your diversity efforts within Facebook been going, and how do you really groom this next generation of talent?
So our efforts have been significantly more successful in non-engineering, to be completely blunt and honest, in non-engineering roles than in engineering roles. We have big representation of, particularly on females, on our top senior leadership position, general counsel, Cheryl as COO. The head of the Facebook app is a fantastic lady from France, Fiji Simo. So we are making significant progress in all those areas. People of color is an issue for us. I am the only one within the senior management team. So we are working on that very aggressively. And engineering is the problem. It's a very competitive field, but it will start. And I believe that is the case in every single one of our fields. The moment that you have bosses that represent the populations that you need to bring forth, the more that they're going to bring those people with them. It's very difficult for you as a woman, as a person of color, as someone with disabilities, to look up and say, I really have no role models that I can follow, that I can pursue. And if that's not part of the consideration set, you're not going to follow those particular careers. You have to be able to dream, just like with athletes. I want to be, when you're a little kid, I want to be like such and such. The same holds true in the business world. You want to be like Cheryl. You want to be like X, Y, and Z across the board. That's the biggest challenge that I think we have, and that's the one that we're going to face first.
I think that's, really important. I always say that the collective minority is greater than the current majority. And if we really think about that, the power of minorities and why we need that diversity at the table. And I want to get to a diversity conversation, but Stephanie, I want to go to you because Antonio brought up, really if you can see those role models, there's aspiration, and you are doing so much with #SeeHer and the ANA, but just in general with more visibility of women in sports, why are you doing that? What are you doing? How are you doing it? And, what are our hopes around that?
Sure, loaded question.
Of
And
course.
just to answer back to the question that was posed before as well, our Chief Technology Officer is very closely partnered with our new Head of Diversity in HR. And women, hiring women in particular for him has been something that he's been leading even before, it has become such a PR issue. Something that he recognized in the strength of his team when you have women and men and people of color, because the more diverse your teams are, I think the better decisions as a company you're going to be able to make. In terms of representation, being able to see her is something I've lived by. My mom was the CEO of WWE, so I always had that female role model. I never thought when I was growing up that women couldn't be CEO or that there was some kind of barrier. I just honestly assumed that they should be. And it was only later in life that I experienced more gender bias and saw the huge discrepancies, especially in sports. One of the things that I'm partnered with Shelley on, and of course, See Her in Sports. Currently, only 4% of sports representation is women across the board in terms of media. So, when you hear people say, oh yeah, women in sports, WNBA, just to use an example, yeah, but no one goes to the games or no one watches the games. Do you guys know when they're on? Do you ever see a play of the week when you're like, oh my God, those girls just brought it? Because they do. These women bring it all the time. You're just not seeing it. You're not hearing enough about it. So that's something that we're all working on and that obviously I'm very passionate about. I've definitely been accused of
crazy to
being
me.
aggressive in my time.
Less than 4% of highlight reels are featuring women in sports. So if we now know this, I always say it starts with awareness,
Knowledge, yeah.
right? Knowledge. We now know. Then it's the education. Now we have to move to action.
Yep.
Why is it so hard to just do 50-50 highlight reels? Like, I'm just
I have
confused.
no idea.
Does anyone
why it's
have any
hard.
idea? What? Anyone out there?
Yeah.
Like,
It's the accountability factor. And how can you hold people accountable now that there's knowledge? How are you going to make change? How are you going to hold people accountable? How are you going to demonstrate to take this step? Because I hear the arguments. I hear both sides of it. Oh, well, you don't want to take the risk of featuring more women because men don't want to watch women and it's a majority male network.